Hi guys, Brain here recording on the same day because you can't tell me what to do. And today we're going to be talking about indoor maps and are they inherently bad? This is something that I don't think I have a solid opinion on because I feel like both perspectives here are pretty compelling and they kind of are at direct odds for each other, and I can't really figure out which one I kind of err more on the side on. So I'm going to describe the two trains of thought that the DVD community has on indoor maps. Are they bad? Are they good? And what are the reasons for that? So let's go ahead and get started. So initially, on the surface, indoor maps are just inherently bad for the design of Dead by Daylight from a gameplay perspective. If you really think about it, killer powers often require a lot of intense movement. Hillbilly, Blight, not Nurse, because Nurse can just, go through things, but Nurse still needs line of sight to function. Spirit, so many characters require ease of movement to use their powers well. And when you take that away, it's essentially like you are taking the power away from certain killers. And I would say most of the killers, because we'll get to the stealth killers in a little bit, because that's kind of the only good thing for in terms of indoor situations. But most killers in the game require line of sight or movement, which are inherently blocked by indoor maps. Think about Huntress. Think about Plague. These people that require ranged attacks. Essentially, if there's walls everywhere or very narrow hallways where people can just slip behind the wall and that's it, you're stopping them from using their powers. This gets even worse when you get characters like Oni, like Bubba, like Hillbilly, where collision is a very, very big problem for them. They are very, very sensitive to the collision issues in DBD, and when there's quite literally collision everywhere, because there are no open planes, it's all just walls and buildings, you're going to end up bumping into things or in situations where you're not even able to use your power because they're going to make it to this wall or this window or this pallet or whatever, because everything's an indoor area, everything's so tight and condensed that it basically blocks most of the ability for killers to use their powers in the game. And when that's a majority of the killer roster, you're going to find that most of the killers in the game are having to kind of resort to being just normal, bland person with weapon characters, because the map itself is literally stopping them from doing so. And this goes for Survivor as well. Survivors need a lot of open area to move around. In order to loop to get to areas, they need that open space to use as a benefit for them to improve their looping, to improve their general macro movement, moving between gens. Think about when RPD first released, and even most of the time now. Quick aside here before we move on with this point, I did want to let you guys know that a lot of you guys do have problems finding gens on indoor maps, and specifically with Larry's and RPD, there is a lighting system in the game that is specifically tied to finding generators. So with Larry's, the signs on the outside of the rooms, if they are blinking, that means the room needs power, which means there's a gen in there that needs to be worked on. If the signs are fully lit or completely turned off, there's no gen to do in there. So if you didn't know that, that's the way to find gens on those maps. But it goes without saying that having to design an entire system around finding generators, specifically because of the kind of map that you have, instead of just having it be normal like every other map, kind of speaks for itself in a certain way. And don't even get me started about finding chests, finding totems, if you have those optional objectives or have a challenge to do those things. Traversing maps is an important thing for the style of game that DBD is. So when you intentionally create a map, an indoor map, especially like RPD, where it's super hard to traverse, you're essentially stopping the flow of gameplay for both sides and making it more grading for both people to play the game, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. However, there is a flip side to this that does have a good counterpoint to this, is that stealth killers flourish on indoor maps. Characters like Pig, Ghostface, Myers, etc., they flourish on indoor maps. They love indoor maps because breaking line of sight is incredibly important to them using their powers. People not having their eyes on them is how they're able to successfully sneak up on people, which is usually hard on these outdoor maps, but on indoor maps, suddenly it becomes an exceptional challenge. And this is to their benefit because there are no good stealth killers in the game. There are either average or low tier stealth killers. Stealth killers are not good inherently, just because their powers have nothing to do with circumventing pallets usually. And also, if the team is on comms, they just kind of call out where the killer is and defeat the whole purpose of their stealth. Having an indoor map heavily benefits them, and they're already very, very weak in the game. So moving away from indoor maps would kind of nerf an already very, very weak class of killers. in Dead by Daylight, and that would be detrimental. Also, whether we like it or not, some survivors do like to play stealthy. Some survivors do like to immerse around and hide, and this may be actually good. This is another thing that's kind of like a hard pill to swallow, is sometimes being able to hide, killer checks around, leaves, and get right back on the gen, gets that gen done, where if they had just been out in the open, they would have been found, chased, and the gen wouldn't have been done. Sometimes stealthing and immersing is the right answer, even though most of the time players just use that tool incorrectly. Realistically, but most of the time they do it poorly. But immersion is not inherently a bad tool, and obviously indoor maps really heavily benefit that sort of play style. So what do you think? Do you think that indoor maps are inherently bad, or do you think there's enough good points in its favor that you think that they should keep making indoor maps? Let me know down in the comments below. But on that, this will be it for today's videos, friends. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much. And if I don't see you tomorrow, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.